Welcome. I'm Dr. Petra. Welcome to the Science of Mind class here at CSLDallas. So we are in the chapter Mind, the Greatest Discovery, and we are looking at the section called Mental Laws. And this is on page 77, and it's a fascinating thing as you look through the work of Ernest Holmes, especially here in the Science of Mind book, is to notice the ways in which he uses the terms mental and spiritual to differentiate our engagement with the nature of reality, to differentiate the way in which we are mystically experiencing spirit and oneness and connection and presence and all of those things. I don't want to say maybe differentiate, not like they're in opposition, but to parse out that from the active, conscious, co-creative engagement with the nature of reality. And that's, of course, what it means to awaken to not only are we part of something larger, but there is a deliberate conscious engagement that we're awakening to. And without that, we are on autopilot or asleep or unconscious or simply playing out the patterns of our history, our biology, our culture, those kinds of things. And so we can see when he's talking about mental laws, what he's really trying to get at here is what's going on from a automatic, mechanical way in which creation comes into being. And that if we can really get a hold of this, we can actually participate in it in a conscious way. So he equates the idea of the mental medium into radio transmission, right? If we think about radio transmission, we can understand that this mental reality, this mental aspect of the one is as well, we use the word law, I would use the word principle, is run by principles, just like radio transmission, or now wireless wireless digital transmission, right? It either works or it doesn't. And it doesn't not work because it doesn't like you. Although we are happy to anthropomorphize it. I have regularly put my computer in timeout. You think about how you're behaving. And yet there's nothing in that sense animate or conscious at that level that's going on. And so when we think about the idea that there is an impulse of life for creation, to express, to be, to become, that we're talking about, he talks about this, that we have to separate the mind of God from the spirit of God. And so we're separating out the impulse of life, which is the desire of spirit to not only be, but to express that, which is the seed of creation. But then the question is always, well, how does the impulse become anything? Right? Because an impulse is actually not anything tangible. It's just a movement in consciousness. Well, how does that actually become anything? And the answer to that is through a process that is actually automatic, impersonal, and infinitely intelligent. So it's the very thing that helps the cells as a baby is growing, a couple of cells get together, and the next thing you know, 9 months later, you have a baby. Well, how does one cell know to become a brain cell and one cell know to become a bone cell? And right, because there is some intelligence, we might equate it to coding. There's some coding that says, okay, you're going to go do this, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do this, and there's an intelligence that is moving through all of it to become what the impulse is for it to become. So we use in the science of mind terms like mental medium, mental laws, universal laws, principles, right? All these words are trying to get a hold of how does being become creation? How does this happen? And if we can understand it, we can begin to see that we're constantly engaged with it. And we can then begin to engage with it consciously. So at the end of this first paragraph, the universal medium of mind is but one of the many attributes of God, of the one, of the infinite reality, the avenue through which God operates as law or as principle, right? And so not an anthropomorphized God, obviously, but an infinite reality that is the source of all creation. So we should differentiate between universal mind and universal spirit. Now, we hear the word mind, and we immediately go to ego, we go to rational thinking, we go to a linear left brain, because we have come to associate a very narrow idea of mind. And it's unfortunate. So what we want to do is remember that these words are used and were written by people who were classically trained in philosophy, classically trained in a older language for science, and so we don't want to put our pejorative ideas on the words that are being used, but invite the words to help us understand what's being talked about, what's being revealed, right? So we think of spirit as presence, the impulse of life itself, those qualities that we associate with love and joy and beauty, right? We have lots of qualities like that we tend to associate with spirit. And we can to a certain extent overemphasize them and forget that the other side of it is order, harmony, intelligence, creation, and specific the understanding of the law of cause and effect, the principles by which nothing becomes something. And of course, this is the very question that quantum physics is trying to answer. How does the quantum field become particularized? What causes a particular wave, quantum wave, to decide to leap into being and all of a sudden become the electron of a little atom that's floating around, right? Because they're constantly winking in and out of existence, out of form. And so what is the process that shifts a quantum wave to become a particular particle at any given moment? Well, it's not because somebody was nice to their mother. It's not. It's because there are principles that are engaged that are using the qualities, the beliefs, the expectations, the patterns, the habits of creation to manifest in form. So we don't think of universal principles as they don't have a spatial. They don't live anywhere. There's nothing spatial about them. There's no form attached to them, which basically means they're operating all the time, everywhere, for every person, in every situation. Just like the law of music, the law of mathematics, the law of art, painting, doesn't matter who you are. If you put yellow and red together, you're going to get orange. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter whether you do it with light or with paint, doesn't matter if you do it with watercolor or acrylics, right? If you put the two colors together, you're going to get the third color. And so that's a principle. These two things interact this particular way and the result is X, right? And that's simply a principle. And so when we talk about these mental laws, in the middle of this next paragraph, we are dealing with an absolutely impersonal thing. An absolutely impersonal thing. It knows how to create without knowing what it creates. Therefore, we must distinguish between the law of mind and the spirit which uses the law. And I can't tell you how many times I hear people say, well, you know, I'm going to rely on spirit to create that. Spirit doesn't create. It's the law that creates. And we fool ourselves into thinking that spirit is going to take our fuzzy, slightly incomprehensible idea about, well, should we do this or that? Well, should we do this or that? Well, I don't know. Spirit will know. No, actually, the law only knows the impulse that it's given. And so if the impulse that it's given, I had a teacher who used to say, fuzzy idea, fuzzy manifestation. Right? Because the law is not saying, could you please sharpen your focus? Could you please decide? So what is it you want? And so do you see, it's a completely impersonal, it has no ability to ask the question, is this what you want? Is this what's needed? Is this what's, right? Now, the other side of that coin is, because it's infinitely intelligence, if we can get far enough out with the end result that we're seeking to create, it has enough intelligence to manage the process. What we do is we think we want to go somewhere, and then we start trying to figure out step by step by step, and then the law has no option but to follow that process. Whereas that's where the miracles come in, right? Because it has so much intelligence, it knows how to get from here to there in a way that we might never be able to design. That's not spirit, that's the law. And I cannot impress upon all of us how important it is to understand the difference, right? Because there isn't someone out there who says, I think you should have this. The law says, let me reflect back to you what you believe, what you imagine, what you expect. Here, let me reflect it back to you. So our lives are feedback of what the law is seeing and out-picturing for us. And it has no opinion. It has no opinion. Now, we talked about this, I guess we talked about this the other day in our celebration on a Sunday, that the trajectory of the impulse of life is for life. Why we say it, oh, we talked about good, right? It has a trajectory. But the challenge of being conscious human beings or unconscious human beings is that we can change that trajectory for good or for ill. We can change that trajectory and are constantly doing so. So the question is, are we changing that trajectory in a way that is supportive, empowering to ourselves and those around us and to making an excellent contribution? Or are we on automatic pilot? Or are we changing that trajectory from a purely self-centered point of view, or a purely, I don't care what's happening in anybody else's life, I'm just going to focus on my own? Do you see? That's why us becoming conscious of this mental medium, this universal law, this universal principle is so important, so that we are consciously engaged in the process. Because the process is happening whether we know it or not. So we want to parse out spirit, the spirit and the mental, mind, intelligence, principled aspects of the nature of reality. So we have that, we have spirit, we have that, and then of course we have the result, physical creation, the place where life is seeking to express itself. All of it is the oneness which we have traditionally used the word God for. Right? It's the biggest term that we have. It just has a lot of anthropomorphized baggage to it. So we can talk about the oneness, the wholeness, the ultimate infinite reality. All of this is a part of it. Just like we can talk about, I have a mental state, I have an emotional state, I have a physical body, right? I can talk about all those three things, but they're still all me. And I can't actually take it apart and put I can't separate them out, but I can talk about them so that I can understand the different aspects of myself. We're doing the same thing with the nature of reality. All right, so let's stop there. This is the part where a lot of people are like, I don't even want to think about this. I just going to meditate, and I'm just going to be love, and everything's going to take care of itself. If we truly have that at the highest level, and we truly believe that with every cell of our being, then the law has to take that and say, yes, everything will take care of itself. But if we don't, right, then that's when all the other stuff starts to, all that shadow stuff, all the stuff that's in our subconscious mind, all that race consciousness, all that starts to impact as well. So let's stop there. We're going to turn to Joseph, and we're going to see what's going on out in the room, out in the ethers, wherever you are, and what comments, questions, things do you want to talk about this. So good morning, Joseph.
Hey, good morning. I appreciate everybody coming out. Thank you for joining us here on campus. Thank you for joining us online. If you want to join in this conversation with your questions and your comments, just feel free to jump in and raise your hand if you're here in the room. If you're joining us on Zoom, just tap the raise your hand icon, and at that time I'll ask you to unmute your mic and join the conversation. If you are joining us on Facebook, type your questions in the chat, and let's come on talk about this thing.
And I saw a hand right up here up front, and then one there in the back. So we'll start with those in the room, and then those of you online, please do join us in the conversation. Yeah.
My name is Ross, and what you just said is really shaking me about forget the plan. Get the specifics as to what you really want to bring into existence and let it go and watch it happen. Is that correct?
Correct.
I love that.
I know, right? And we do it exactly backwards. What we have a tendency to do is we're going to say, well, whatever spirit wants, it'll be good. And then I wonder what I have to do next. And then we start obsessing over the steps, right? But if we really allow ourselves to think of the end result, I'll just take the example of, coming out of the pandemic here at CSLDallas. Right? The mental equivalent that what we've been holding is we're a thriving community. But I have no idea what that looks like. But I know we're a thriving community, and I know that we serve our people whether they're in person or online. And that's the end result we've been holding. And so we've been sort of watching it, allowing it to unfold. We've been trying things, doing things, some of them work, some of them don't work, but each time the principle of unfolding is moving us towards this end result of we're a thriving community. And here we are, a year and a half after having opened, a year and 3/4 after having opened, and last year it was like, is anybody coming back? Right? To, wow, there's all kinds of things going on, and they're new and they're different. And if we had said, oh, we have to recreate this, and we have to remanifest that, and we better start doing that. Do you see, we would have been interfering with the process to this moment where we're like, wow, this is actually a thriving community. We're doing okay. And we get all involved in the mucking up of the how. That is the law's job. Now, sometimes I have trouble all the way, no, all the way to the end. And so I might take some points along the way, right? Maybe I'm having trouble thinking that I really can, in fact, go back to school and get a PhD, right? So that would be the ultimate end result. I now have a PhD. And so I might take a couple pieces in between that says, the perfect school for me to do this while I'm working, right? That could be a spot along the way. But if I get too much into all the details, now the law basically has to follow my limited ability to figure it out. And it is actually quite wonderful to then be part of the process instead of the manager of the process. Yeah.
I shared something a couple weeks ago that really shook me. I keep a journal.
Uh-huh.
And I looked at November 21, 2021. And I looked at the issues I was dealing with and planning these. And then I looked at today. They were the same darn things. I hadn't gotten anywhere. Mm-hmm. After careful planning and trying to execute all these things, nothing frigging happened.
Yes.
And going, how about I get specific with the outcome?
Yes.
And let it go.
Yes. Well, and then let it go. Trust in the process, right? These are like you put something. Let's say you're going to send an email. You trust that the digital stuff is going to work. That all the servers that it's got to go through have to work, and that at some point the other person's going to actually get the email. And obviously, if we push it too far, it's going to break down because the server could break down. Yada yada yada. But we get the idea, right? I don't have to figure out which server does it go to, and and what does it have to bounce off a satellite, and right?
Right.
And that's the kind of trust in the principle we have to grow. The popular old religious term for that is faith, right? But we're not having faith blindly. We're actually trusting in a principle that always works the same way. Yeah, see, and so it's focusing on what kind of life do you want to have? What area of your life are you seeking to manifest? Is there something specific in terms of health or work or money or relationships or whatever it is? But it's the end result that we're in charge of. Yeah.
And so am I correct? It's this getting specific of what the outcome looks like. Am I correct?
Well, it's up to you, right? So it depends on whether you are wanting a specific form, or whether you're wanting a specific experience, or whether you're wanting both, right? So you can be as specific as you want. I notice that when it is something that I want, I tend to be very specific. Car, house, shoes, a trip, I tend to be very specific. Okay. Like, I want a particular color, a particular thing, a particular kind, I want to spend this much money, and I expect the law to manifest that for me. Sometimes being overly specific in the form can get in the way of life experiences, the kind of life we want to have. So I might say, I want to be very specific. I want to work for this company, have this job, make this much money. Actually, we just had this conversation, right? I got a great question last week after the Sunday celebration. We bought a cabin, but we didn't buy it in the Northwest, which is where I wanted to go. And I thought for sure we'd go back to the Northwest and buy a cabin. Well, until I discovered that I would have to make a whole boatload more money. And I would have to have a whole boatload of more money to actually buy what I wanted to buy in the Northwest. And we could have absolutely stayed with, I want a cabin in the Northwest, which would have meant a whole host of other things that we would have focused on. What I realized is that what was more important to me was a cabin, mountains, trees, water that I can pay cash for and that we love. Do you see? So I realized that when I really got down to it, I was willing to give up the Northwest, because what I wasn't willing to give up was getting a mortgage. And what I wasn't willing to give up was so totally focusing on trying to make so much more money so that I could buy something in the Northwest, when in fact, I was actually willing to give that up because these were my specifics. Does that make sense to you, right? And so, and I could have chosen to say, no, by God, I want something in the Northwest, that's a non-negotiable. Nobody knows the answers to our non-negotiables but us, and we can be as specific or not as we choose. I'm going to have, I accept the perfect job that financially supports me and allows me to give my gift. That's great. So now I have to figure out, well, what am I going to apply to? It does help if we have an arena in which we want to do it. Maybe we have 3 or 4. And so we find we apply to jobs in 3 or 4 different industries, or we say, I'm the best accountant that there's ever been. I'm going to find the best accounting job because I love accounting. Do you see that this is our choice, but that's the end result. And then the principle, the law, starts getting busy to manifest that, bring it to us and bring us to it, which means, of course, we do actually have to do stuff, and we are being moved toward it as it's coming toward us. Good. Thanks, Ross. Okay, hand back there, one online. So where do you want to go next, Joseph?
Let's go to our Zoom audience here.
Okay, and then I'm going to come
Looks
right
like
back
we
to
have
you,
a question from Armando. Could you please unmute your mic and join the conversation?
Good morning, Armando.
Good morning, Dr. Petra. I love this topic. One of the big lessons that took me a while to understand was not getting wrapped up in the details of the health. And once I was able to really understand that, every time I create something, co-create, I would say that sometimes it doesn't manifest yet. So I just put it all to the side, I release it, let it go, and I keep moving up, keep going. I show up, I keep putting the energy in. It may be directly or it may be indirectly to those co-creations, but I keep going and just waiting for the next thing. What I found is that later on, sometimes it's a year later, 2 years later, a conversation comes up about a particular topic, and then it's like, oh, I already have that already created. I just have to find my folder. And then all of a sudden, now it's time to get into the details and how. And then one fun demonstration is that in 2020, I kept affirming that my organization was going to go nationwide. And I did a lot of work around that. And it has not manifested yet. But what has happened is that I now have interns all over the country. And I have 2 project managers in 2 different countries that are working for the organization. So my vision was that I was going to be out there, corporate project was going to be out throughout the U.S., make an impact in our world. But right now, the universe said, no, I'm bringing you all of these interns to help build this up. So I don't know when that's going to happen, but I do know that even though it's kind of like a sub way, I still manifested in the sense of it's still something that is across the United States, and it is still something that is out in 2 different countries. And that just affirms to me, keep going, keep doing it. Stick with the vision, stick with your principles, stick with what you know, and don't get wrapped up in the details of how it will unfold when it needs to be unfold. If it does unfold, I know because I've done the work and because I am ready whenever that moment is, and I'm ready to execute. And it's just such a to continue being in this universal process and just allowing it to be, not to get irritated at why is it not happening. I don't force things, I don't go knocking on doors, none of that. It's just keep on going.
Beautiful. Poster child. That is a great explanation of how that works, Armando. And I know it's so amazing. And so part of what we can see is Armando's on the way to his end result, right? And so one of the things I know about you, Armando, is that you have a significant amount of patience. We become so impatient And what we have to understand is the universe is literally rearranging the molecules. They might have to get a whole new person, there might have to be a whole new person in some really significant position in some NGO, and that could take a little while before Armando's project ends up on that person's desk, whereas the person before who had that job, I'm just making it up, who knows? And there's no way that we ourselves could figure out what needs to happen. And the end result is pulling everything toward it. And this infinite intelligence, that's why we have to understand it's an infinite intelligence, is constantly bringing that together. And that's the place of trust, patience, and to see the movement along the way. And I know that with what Armando was just sharing, right? We're national, or we're all over the country, right? That doesn't have a specific form. So right now it's all being done with interns. Okay, that's certainly a step along the way. Who knows what the form is going to be? But specific, we're across the nation. Do you see? That's actually very specific. So sometimes we hear specific and we think form. And yes, and sometimes form is exactly a part of it, and sometimes it's not. And again, it's up to us what that looks like. Thank you, Armando. Okay, we have JL.
Hi, Petra.
Hi.
So what happens when you're not, well, two-part question. Are we trusting spirit, or are we trusting the law? And does that matter?
I think it matters hugely. I think when we say we're trusting in spirit, we are abdicating our responsibility.
Okay.
Because what we're doing then is we're not deciding. We're not choosing.
But what happens when you're not sure what's next? Like when you don't have a clear vision of what's next.
Well, then try something.
Just like that?
Okay, there's no right answer. This is I think one of the hardest things to let go of. Spirit does not have a plan for you other than for you to be joyously happy, express who you are, and grow. So, you want to quit your job? Okay. You're not sure whether you should quit your job? Should you go home, stay at home mom? Should you decide to become an artist? Should you be... Listen to yourself, make a choice, and then see what happens. Right? We take it all together so seriously. Right? This is our sandbox. This is the universe discovering what it is to make choices and to experiment and to play with it. And we have so many messages about how to live right, how to live normal, how to make, right? And so it's entirely up to us, the life that we want to create. And here's the beauty of it. The law is automatic. It's not going to say, this is a bad choice. But it's also not going to say, what? You just got started, why are you choosing again? It's not going to say, can't you make up your mind? It's not going to say, well, that didn't work out very well, did it? So I'm not really going to work for you very well this next time. You could think of it literally as, deciding that you're going to put a light bulb in a lamp in your house and you test. Do I like a red light bulb? Ooh, that's kind of a cool, but I can't really read. I think I'll put a grow light in here because I want my plants to grow. Oh, that's really bright. I don't really like that. Do you see what I'm saying? And I don't mean to take it lightly. This is the joy of our ability to choose. And if you're not sure, then start testing. Right? Just start testing out things. So you think maybe you're going to, I don't know, you want to try something different. So Karen and I are thinking about, we'd like to maybe at some point, I really have this thing that I think that if I came to the end of my life and I hadn't spent some significant time in Europe, that I would regret it. And so I've been saying for quite a while that I'd love to live in Europe for a year or two. And so we've started talking about, well, what would that look like? Where do you want to live? And I'm like, I don't really know. Okay, I don't know. I don't know what would work. I don't know how I would like it. It's not going to happen anytime soon because we don't have the cash for it, but we have to start planning. So the next thing was, well, what if we spent our month that we take off in August, what if we spent that month and tested the waters? So maybe we'll spend a month in, northern Italy. Maybe we'll spend a month in Switzerland. Ooh, that's expensive. Oh, yeah. That's expensive. Nope, scratch it off the list. Okay, I love Switzerland, I'll visit. You see what I'm saying? Right? And we just start testing and seeing what, and seeing what, and ultimately, I might decide, I think I'd much rather visit. But I will have tested it enough to have some ideas about, is this really something that I want to do, or is this just a fantasy I've been holding all my life? Does that make sense? And I get to choose, and nobody gets to say to me, oh, well, why did you let go of your dream? Well, because I tested it out and I decided it wasn't it. Or, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. When I'm 70, 75, I'm going to be living in Europe, and I'm going to be writing you all postcards. But do you see what I'm saying? There's no right answer to it. There's only our answers, and we don't always know. And that's the beauty of it, because there isn't a right answer. If people come to me and they say, should I leave my relationship or not? Well, if you're in an abusive relationship, get the hell out, okay? Right? Otherwise, if you leave your relationship, you will learn and grow. If you stay in your relationship, you will learn and grow. What do you want to do? Right? What's your choice? Your choice. And so we want to trust Spirit because we think Spirit's going to say, Petra, your life will be so much better if you would do blah, blah, blah. But that's what it doesn't do. It says, just live. That's what it says.
I sort of wish I didn't come today.
That's great.
This is upsetting so many pet beliefs that I've had.
I know, right?
You're right.
Right, and we have to rip those beliefs out, right? Now, once we've decided where we're going, right, that's what we've made a decision to test something out, right? We do actually have to be committed to it. We have to be committed to the test. Right? But it's always the end result we're committed to. And then we're paying attention because what the law is doing is now giving us feedback by how it shows up. That it's just feedback. Everything in the physical universe is just feedback. And we either like it or we don't. It's either what we wanted or we didn't. Or it's either so many of you know that I did not plan to spend my career in Dallas. I did not, right? It's flat and it's hot. And and I'm a mountain girl, cool mountain girl. It's been, but the joy of being at CSLDallas overrode, right, some other things. So my end result, the thing that I worked on is how do I make it joyful for me to work in Dallas? Well, this is why I travel. This is why we bought a cabin in the woods. This is why I go away in August, because it's how I manage my own competing values, my own competing desires, my own competing wants. And I tell you, I've been at this community for a very, very long time. and I wouldn't trade it for the world. But I had to test it out. Can I really bloom where I've been planted? Can I really do this? Oh, yeah, I can. Wow. Okay, so what do I need to do for these other things that are important to me? So, but that's why we're all different, because we all uniquely line up our own priorities, the things that are important to us. You want to go out and make a huge impact, make a lot of money, go for it. You want to stay home, go for it. You want to be an artist, go for it, right? But you are going to confront your own competing values. And spirit isn't going to fix that for you. That's what it means to be a choosing, conscious choosing being. That's what that means. And to be a grown-up. Take responsibility for our choices. And you don't like it? This is the other thing. The law never says, oh, you're changing your mind? What's the matter with you? Now, your mother might say that, but the law is not your mother. Like, have you ever had a kid go to the light switch? Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Stop! Oh, stop! The light bulb does not say that. The electricity does not say that. The light switch does not say that. It will turn on and off as many times as that little child is going to flick that switch. It's only we who choose. Okay, that's annoying. You need to stop now. Does that make sense to you? Right? And so we can either put up with it or say no, or put up with it for a while and then say no. Right? That's all us. And we have the right and the responsibility to choose and choose again. The longer that we stay committed to a choice we make, Armando had a beautiful expression of that. Those things that are really important to us, the longer that we stay committed to that choice, the more likely over time the law will manage all the miracles that are required for that to happen. All right, I'm getting lots of signals that we are so far over time, we have to stop. So bring your questions next week, because we're going to be still in this same paragraph, the same section, and we will continue this conversation. Good. Yes, it's so lovely. This is really important. And bye for now.